All right, welcome. My name is Jay Carpenter with phoneword.org. Also have Brandon Mason with us today. And this is our second registrar workshop for phoneword.org. And this is Wednesday, April the 23rd, 2014. It's almost 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is the third Wednesday workshop. And we're going to be holding these workshops on the second Wednesday and the third Wednesday of each month for the foreseeable future. We thank you for joining us. This is recorded and will be posted and available on the www.phoneword.org website. I do encourage you to put in the www.phoneword.org because it doesn't always resolve without the www. So thank you. The intention of today's workshop is to look at some design and architectural approaches to a registry as well as registrars for phoneword.org, and this is designed to create a new service set around dialable, what I'm calling dialable rich media, or some would call enum, electronic number mapping. And I'm getting a message here on Google Plus. So the intention is that we are building a community that can collaborate, be part of this initiative, and today we're going to be talking about some of the fundamental design elements and architectures, and I think we're going to go ahead and just get started here, and people might be joining us on the conference bridge. We are still building a mailing list, a distribution list, so if you are interested in being on the distribution list, please send an email to jcarpenter, that's JAYCARPENTER, at phoneword.org, and you will be included on the future email distribution lists and updated on our developments. So you can find that information at www.phoneword.org as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to get into the screen share with the presentation. And by the way, the presentation is available on the homepage of www.phoneword.org, and you're welcome to follow along there. So, Brandon, can you see that okay?
Yeah. So I'm seeing your whole screen. I think you could share just the web browser.
Okay.
I think I'm seeing your whole screen. Everything else is black, though, so maybe it's good.
I put it on full screen view. Does that make a difference, what you're seeing now?
It looks good to me.
Okay.
We can run with this.
Let's just proceed. So this is our agenda for today, where we're having an introduction to what is phoneword.org. We've already talked about it a little bit. This is operating in conjunction with the FCC Numbering Testbed Initiative, which there was a workshop that was held in Washington, D.C. on March the 25th. That is still sort of in the formative stages. We haven't seen a summary yet from that workshop, but the phoneword.org is intended to be part of, or at least work in conjunction with, the FCC test numbering initiative for the all IP transition. And phoneword.org is intended to be a community building and collaborative initiative. It is completely financed internally through workshop fees, and we'll talk a little bit about those workshop fees later. And I think that's about it. Can you think of anything else, Brandon, that is relevant and a good introduction to phoneword.org?
Um, no, I think we'll get into the rest of it as we go through. But
Okay.
basically, we're trying to be a non-biased entity for registry service, where you have a lot of telecoms and various companies interested in this space. And some of the reason why progress has been a little slow is because of the non-agreement on um, who should actually control that. So we're trying to push that discussion forward.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So the first thing is that we are interested in creating a new. So effectively, phoneword.org is something that's occurring over the top of everything else that exists today, certainly in the telecom world, and arguably in part of the media world as well. So part of the what I'll call the elegance of phoneword.org is that we have something where we think we can create from a totally fresh start. We can create anew. We default to the legacy telephone network if we have to, and we give that ability to the end user that's interacting with phoneword.org. So we think we have an innovative approach to what would seem like a very overwhelming and daunting task, which is to transition from a 100-plus-year-old, telephone network into an all internet protocol space. And basically we're doing that by creating a community that consists of what we're calling commercial registrars, sponsored registrars, and then just general participants. And commercial registrars are designed for operating companies that are companies like traditional carriers or maybe social media companies, other companies that might be interested in experimenting with this new paradigm for their own internal communications, not necessarily to set up something that's for profit and a sort of a next step from their traditional business models. So that's what the commercial registrars are for. And if you go to www.phoneword.org, you can see the registrar page. There is a page to sign up. It's a very modest fee of $475 per month. It's month to month, no commitment, and basically that will allow your company, your entity, a spot as one of the 25 commercial registrars that will be the initial community. And that is something that we'll be talking about more in the future, but that is an opportunity to really be in on the ground floor of this. The other sponsored registrars are an opportunity for institutions like academic research institutions, possibly nonprofit, possibly regulatory institutions, to participate at basically just a dollar a month, and that's simply to get payment information, and that again is month to month. We are asking the sponsored registrars to participate at some level in terms of the technical contributions to the overall initiative. General participants, anybody's welcome to sit in on these workshops, to help us collaborate, and possibly participate in some form or fashion. And we'll be talking about general participant requirements and people that are interested in doing that later on. Not in this workshop, but in future workshops. So we want to start with what is the end goal. So we're sort of starting from the front end and working backwards. Number one is phoneword.org and the entire platform, registry, registrars, registrants. First and foremost, we want this to be easy. So what would it look like if connecting to something like this Google Hangout or a conference call or a video conference call or a webinar was as easy as dialing a telephone number like address? What would that open up? It may sound trivial, but we think that could be a very, very valuable and enabling way to connect to what we're calling rich media. The other part is security.
Hey, Jay.
Sure.
Before we get into some of these other points, would you like to? This might be a good time to just demo on
Okay.
the Android what you're talking about as far as connecting to the contact info, the portal.
Sure. So let me end my screen share. All right. So do you see me now, Brandon?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay. So let me demo this. There's a little bit of a glare, but basically this is what I'm talking about. What would it look like if you had a native dialer? In this case, it's a native Android dialer, and you were able to enter a telephone number like address, and instead of immediately making a phone call, you hit call, and boom, you have a new set of options, like seeing a YouTube video, a website, an email address, and of course, you can also make a phone call.
Can
So
you put that a little bit closer to the screen, if we can?
there's a bit of a glare in here, so
Yeah.
can you see that somewhat?
Uh, Turn it so it's more facing the screen.
Yeah. Let's see if we can do it.
It's hard with the glare.
Yeah, it's hard with the glare. Yeah, I think that's actually the best we're going to do. So you can see that by simply dialing something that looks and appears and kind of acts like a telephone number, all of a sudden we've got a new experience. We have a set of rich media options that's available at the dialer's choice, and these options can be controlled by the person that owns the telephone number like address, or the what is actually technically called an enum, electronic number mapping. Now, I won't get into all the other use cases and value propositions, but just think of this just simply from the traditional what's called interactive voice response. So think about when you call your bank or insurance company or whatever, wouldn't it be nice to simply be able to dial something that's like their telephone number, acts like their telephone number, but instead of having the press 1 for this, press 2 for that experience, you had instantly a drop-down menu, and you could go directly to whatever you needed. This is also, in my view, superior to the experience with quick response codes or QR codes. So no one has ever or will ever write down a QR code. But certainly this could usher in an experience like a QR code, but superior because you're using a telephone number like address that if you're driving down the road and you see a sign, you can enter that telephone number like address later on, and boom, you've got something that's as good or arguably better than a QR code. Now let me show you one more thing here. Let's say that If I don't want to, um, if I don't want to uh, use this service, this enum service, I can hit a button and basically bypass this. So the default is to go to our tried and true telephone call. And this is a big element because a lot of the initiatives that are underway right now in terms of the all IP transition are trying to take the old existing copper network features, functionality, etc., and somehow bridge that in to a an all IP network experience. And that's somewhat akin to if I was going to try to take an iPad and connect it to a telephone, and imagine this is an old style feature phone, and I was going to try to craft some sort of connection from this into a connection to that. That is what I call complicated. Complicated means it's hard, it means it's fraught with problems, and we think that the paradigm that we're using with phoneword.org is a much more elegant way to achieve the same thing in a quicker fashion with a lot less complication and avoiding a whole bunch of the problems that others are attempting to engineer around at this point. This also has an impact on the public safety and the E911 issues, because if the new modern stuff, the IP connectivity doesn't work, the dialer or the person dialing always has the option to use what's already in place. Anything else you can think of, Brandon, that I might be missing?
Yeah. Well, so we're talking through some different scenarios here uh, for use cases for this service and how it's going to impact both end users and the telecom networks and stuff. So I think that's fine, and we'll. Do you want to go back to the presentation and?
Going back to the presentation.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, good. All right. So back to the presentation. We just went over what I would consider the easy part of it. We're assuming that anyone in the world can dial something that's like a telephone number. The other part is the security. So up until this point, you're either, or end users have either experienced something that was easy and not secure, or something that was secure but difficult to set up. And we think that under the phoneword.org model, we can combine both, the best of both worlds, make it easy and secure, with user control privacy and a new method of public-private key authentication. And the third point that's our goal and objective and our starting point is to maximize the end user value. This is a peer-to-peer model, and it relies upon, or it will emphasize WebRTC, which is web real-time communications. We're also building in identity management elements that we think are very valuable and very dynamic. Also unified contact methods, where it's not just about telephone number-like addresses. It's about all of our addresses, email addresses, Skype names, Facebook names, Twitter handles, all of that. What if there was a relationship between all those disparate addresses that we currently deal with? What if they all started to take on an elegant and a unified relationship with one another? And again, under the control of the end user or the registrant. In other words, you and me. So what if you could have the control and the say over your telephone, your cell phone number, your email addresses, your Twitter handles, Facebook names, all of that? What if it all worked together in a unified fashion? And then the fourth maximum end user value, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but we rely upon, hey, if nothing else, if the new stuff is not working, we can always fall back to the old stuff. It's very much like when you're trying to get on, let's say, a webinar. If for some reason your webinar software is not working or whatever, you can always fall back on dialing into the conference call. So you've got that minimum connectivity. Anything else you can think of, Brandon?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So that's our end goal set. So now let's talk about the registry design. And this is a slide that was taken from the slide deck from the FCC numbering testbed workshop on March 25th. This was created by Dr. Henning Schultz-Rennie, who's the Chief Technology Officer of the Federal Communications Commission. And there were basically two main architectures that were put forth in the numbering testbed. Number one was a single registry for the testbed. Architecture two, which is this slide, is multiple registries working together in basically a federated fashion. And that is the architecture and the model that we favor. So phoneword.org is designed to be one of many registries that work in a cooperative fashion with one another. So you see the slide, it's got 4 registries. Well, just imagine phoneword.org being one of those. In fact, the one that's within the red box. And then underneath the registry is a set of registrars, which would be similar to what we're used to when we go to register an internet domain. We call up a registrar, someone like GoDaddy, Name.com, Network Solutions, etc. And that registrar is basically the buffer or the interface between the public or the customers or the registrants and the registry. You know, Dr. Schultz-Rennie has assignee. In this particular slide, you can replace assignee with registrant or end user here. Anything else you would say about this, Brandon?
No, just that you know, I guess mainly what we want to focus on for our kind of discussion around the testbed setup is the relationship between the registry and the registrar. So you know, there's still going to be conversation further on down the line about the relationship between registries, but I think we're going to see more of that as we get additional players in the testbed, and we'll need to start interacting with them around how do we communicate together.
Absolutely. All right, so the next slide, this is the phoneword.org platform service layers, and basically on top you have this registry, enum, again, electronic number mapping registry, which in all likelihood will include some identity management elements to it. And a part of the community, let's say part of the registrar community, is looking to phoneword.org to do a number of things. Certainly, first and foremost, is to operate the registry, which is the core of the platform, and then provide a set of registrar functionality, which could include NAPTR records and some sort of interface between a what I'll call a registrar template and the registry. And we have extended services that can benefit the academic community and basic services that can benefit the commercial community. So those are the two, the academic and the commercial communities are the two core communities that we're looking to invite to participate with phoneword.org and be the initial kernels, if you will, of the phoneword.org community. Now, in addition, we have registrant services, and Brandon, I'll let you kind of talk about those services at this point.
Yeah, sure. So, and I think this is an area where we kind of have a unique perspective on this. It seems like typically the registry and registrar services are kept separate, and I think for good reason. The registrar is mainly concerned with just keeping an index of all the numbers, but they're not really concerned with user services. They don't know who the end registrants are, and the management of registrant services is really handled by the registrar. So the separation makes sense, but I think in terms of the testbed phase, I can see potentially an end-to-end solution being valuable in getting off the ground and running, and might continue to provide value in the case where with the academic community, if they want a solution in a box, or if you're looking for an unbiased third party to act as your registrar, we could potentially fulfill that sort of role.
Yes, absolutely. You want to talk about WebRTC a little bit and what we've defined as the visitor services?
Yeah, sure. So WebRTC is an example of kind of an end-user service that we could provide to add value to this. If you think about a end user, a registrant, having their phone number set up and having a portal set up where there's multiple ways to contact them, one of those ways could be I want to do a video voice call with you, and I want to do it point to point. And WebRTC is a protocol that lets us do that. So there's a lot of power there. There's that's the potential to make a direct call just using basically the IP network, the internet network, and this is seamless. It's one additional click or tap on your smartphone over just making a regular call using your cellular network. So other things that we can kind of provide in this category are other visitor services. They basically all tie into the interpretation of those NAPTR records, which are the various ways to contact an individual for the most part. So, WebRTC is one example, but given other means of contacting, like say I have my YouTube channel. Say I have, maybe I set up a website. Maybe I'm a small business owner and I have a website where I've actually got a sales funnel set up. Um, those are even potential NAPTR endpoints, and what we can do. I think what part of a registrar's job is going to be is setting up those endpoints as easy as possible. And I guess you can have a registry that just functions as a registry. You can have a registrar that just functions as that. But and you can have these visitor services and the registrant services potentially as third party provided by third parties at a lower layer. But again, I think there is value to bundling these, and the registrar really has the potential to create multiple solutions in a box for the end user.
Right. Absolutely. And that's part of what we're interested in testing, experimenting with, sandboxing, if you will, over the next, let's say, year during this testing period. Anything else, Brandon?
No, I think I'm ready for the next slide here.
Okay. So I'll let you take this slide and go with it.
Okay. So this is our initial thoughts on what we would provide for the test bed, and for the most part, we've put away most of the end user discussion and the registrant services for later. But we, at a baseline, we want to provide a registry service. So in order to do that, we need a DNS server set up that is going to take your enum format telephone numbers, and it's going to tell whoever's trying to dial that number where to find the NAPTR endpoints, which are those are the records that connect us to the many ways in which we could contact you. So there's a solution available called Power DNS, and we found some papers describing performance characteristics and specifically how to use that for an enum server. So I think we have a good baseline using that and not reinventing the wheel there. And also, in order to really fulfill the registry role, we need to provide a service that lets you manage those records. And the registry's job is really to serve the registrars. So at a registry level, we're not going to have records of any end users, any registrants. Instead, we will have accounts for registrars, and the main method for registrars to communicate with us will be through a REST API. The plan is to support JSON in that, but we could potentially support XML. Another consideration is that for the portability of records, we could support the RFC 6116 compatible data types. So what we're looking for there is we want to make this as flexible a service as we can, and essentially support the data types that whatever systems the registrar is setting up, they would be able to talk to it. And we're definitely looking for feedback in that regard, on what you're looking for. So in addition to providing just the raw DNS services and the phone, the enum index, I think it's going to be valuable for the testbed purposes if we were to provide the NAPTR endpoints as well. And this would be an optional service. If you're a registrar and you want to store your own NAPTR endpoints, that's fine, and we'll point our DNS to you. But what this does, if we are able to provide that right off the bat, I think we can get you up and running quickly. Where just with having our service, you could in an afternoon have your phone providing the end user experience, where you dial a number and you get that NAPTR portal. And that's the idea behind this, is that you could get up and running quickly.
Exactly. And I would like to add that the underlying approach to this is, if at all possible, using what's called full stack JavaScript. So we looked at some approaches earlier and some existing platforms. However, the existing platforms that are out there now, such as Fred, the free registry for enum and internet and domains, is great, tried and true, so forth, but it's really a very mixed collection of elements. And since we are starting anew and we are building a community, that community will need to learn whatever the underlying code and language and so forth is associated with phoneword.org, we're now proposing that we just start fresh and build something that's contemporary, which is full stack JavaScript, and something that has as large a community as possible of developers and people familiar with the technology. So we are proposing and planning to use end-to-end JavaScript for phoneword.org. Is there anything else you'd like to say about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea here is, like as Jay mentioned, the Fred system we evaluated. There's a lot of deployment complexity that we see there, and potential maintenance issues with that. Not to mention when it comes to deployment, if you're deploying a vast array of technologies, it's adding risk, and it's adding increased time to your deployment setup. So with Node.js, we're really consolidating to a single technology that's going to be widely accessible to developers, and we are we're shooting for an open community around registries. We believe that the creating that open community is going to be the way forward, and it's going to be the way that gives us the most choice for the end user, and the best kind of the best world, most competitive environment, if you will.
In addition, having this open source collaborative community involved with phoneword.org also pushes us to the side of the scale of being Swiss neutral and as basically unbiased as possible. And that has, I think, some very significant implications that make phoneword.org much more attractive than other alternatives. So, but that's for another discussion, another workshop where we're talking about policy and governance, and that'll be for another time. One thing I would like to say, Brandon, before we move on to the next slide, is there anything else you want to say about this slide?
I have a few more comments here, and then I actually want to move back to the previous slide and ask some more questions there as well.
Okay, go ahead.
So, kind of parting remarks here is that just to summarize, we would provide the both the enum management as well as the NAPTR endpoint management. Uh, we want to provide APIs that are easily accessible there. Another thing we'd like to do is provide a simple web-based UI so that
Interface.
you could potentially set up a demo environment for dialing enums without touching a line of code. Uh, you visit our web interface, you create a registrar user, and through the web interface you can actually create your phone number registries as well as your NAPTR endpoints, and you're ready to actually test on your phone. So again, I think this is really going to maximally facilitate the testbed process.
Absolutely.
So
Any other?
come back to the previous slide for just a second.
Before we do that, I would like to make an overarching comment. Often in this conversation, we collapse the term telephone number and enum. And I would like to emphasize at this point that those two things, although they have similar features, similar functionality, they might look and feel like they're the same thing to somebody that's entering either into a dialer. Those are two distinctly separate things. A telephone number is a construct of, and I'll call it an artifact of the public switch telephone network, the copper network. An enum, which might look and feel like a telephone number, is actually a fully qualified domain name that lives and exists within the Internet Protocol realm and DNS, which is domain name system world. So,
hey Jay, that's actually a really good point. Could you actually type out an example of both of those? Like maybe take an example phone number and then show what a corresponding enum would be. And I know we have still some, there's some discussion on what the exact enum format will be, but without getting hung up too much on that.
Yeah, I can actually do that right now. I'm going to do something really, it's kind of off the cuff, but I'm going to switch out of, I'm going to go back into camera mode.
Okay.
And
actually, if you just wanted to open up a text editor or another, like a Google document, you could just type it in there.
well, I've actually got it all written out.
Oh, perfect.
On a board. So hopefully this is viewable. And unfortunately there's some glare on here. But basically this, and you might have to freeze frame.
Just try and hold it steady for a bit. It takes a while for the detail to settle down.
So is that showing, Brandon?
It's hard. It's hard to read.
Let me.
It'd be better to type it in.
Let me do this. Let me close these blinds and see if that. I would do that, but it takes me a while to do it, to type in that stuff accurately. And let me see if I can.
Oh, we're upside down now.
Oh, we are. Okay. Well, suffice it to say that we'll emphasize this on our next workshop, but the distinction between telephone numbers and fully qualified domain names is a key distinction. And we will emphasize that in the next workshop. But I've been in this conversation about enums, electronic number mapping, for over a decade now, and it's my view that the collapsing of the two items, telephone numbers and enums, causes a whole bunch of complications. So we'll just leave it at that for the moment. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that,
Yeah,
Brandon?
just in general terms, a phone number, everybody knows what a phone number is, the format of that, where your area code kind of comes first. And, oh, you still on there, Jay?
I'm on here. Are you seeing the slide now?
Yeah, we just switched the contacts there.
Right.
So phone number, people are familiar with that, and the area code comes first. And a difference with the enum is that the order is reversed. The area code goes last, and it's converted into basically a domain name format. But you're going to see numbers all as the first part of that domain. And converting it to a domain is what gives us the power of using internet infrastructure, and it's what gives us the power of placing you at a portal of various contact methods instead of just a single contact method.
Right. Absolutely. Increases the power immensely. So, all right, you want to go back to the prior slide?
Yeah, for just a second.
Okay, so there's the prior slide.
And the thing I wanted to say here is that, on the architectural slide that we just looked at, we saw the services that we're offering are, we want to fulfill the registry layer, and then we want to dip a little bit into the registrar layer and provide the NAPTR management, but not at a user granularity. We would provide the NAPTR management at just a registrar granularity. So my question here is, for the various parties that might be watching or might wish to get involved with this, at what level would this be valuable to you? Are you looking for services mainly at the registry level? Are you looking for more of a solution in the box? Do you find the hybrid approach valuable? So that's the question for the viewer here.
Awesome. And we have contact information at the end of this presentation. You can also find contact information at www.phoneword.org. And we're asking people that might be viewing this either to give us some feedback. We're really interested in crafting this, steering this initiative, this community initiative, in the direction of what do people feel would be the most valuable areas to pursue first and foremost. Anything else, Brandon?
No, that's it.
Okay. So, next slide is basically collaboration. And we've talked about this a little bit, but we are creating this initiative in a way that we're looking to optimize the collaboration that can take place. This is a huge undertaking. This will take a lot of effort, and the only way to really do this, in my view, is you just do it. You can spend a lot of time planning and drafting and so forth. We are taking an agile approach, put something out there, build it, put in some people's hands, get feedback, and then iterate. That's the whole idea behind phoneword.org. So we're part and parcel with the underlying code and technology that's going to be rolled out here as we move forward is effective methods of collaborating and experiences like this Google Hangout, using GitHub, using groups, using email, distribution lists, conference calls. Part of the value of phoneword.org is innovating and crafting new ways to collaborate and in a rapid development, agile development fashion, see if we can create something new that not only builds this next generation platform, but also could pioneer some new ways for people around the world to work together. Anything you would have to add to that, Brandon?
No, I think it feeds back on itself. You know, what we're building here is basically communications infrastructure, and you know, we want to take a very open-ended approach to our design process. We welcome feedback, and at the same time, the end result of this should be greater ability to collaborate between people as we lower the barriers for these different communication methods.
Absolutely. All right, so next slide is what do you want? And we are just in the very beginning, tiny steps of this, and what we're looking for is feedback from the community, and the community being a global community, as to what do you want? What do you think is the most valuable part of the conversation that we're having now, and the functionality and the technology? Because we really don't know. This is, until you get things into people's hands and you get them using something, you know, it's easy to think you've got the greatest thing in the world ever. However, people don't always see the same value, and it's only until you get something in people's hands can you determine if it's really of value to them or not. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Brandon?
Yeah, well, I think we have, you know, there's a variety of people that, you know, would be interested in these technologies, and particularly early adopters within the telecom industry. We've got Mozilla and Google very interested in this space, and some people in the academic community who are interested in collaboration technologies. So I think every party that's interested in this is interested for different reasons, and we just kind of want to identify those and kind of balance them out and identify the direction that we would like to go, and at the same time, you know, with the open source technologies and with the approach we're taking, I think we're being pretty flexible. So.
Yep. And by the way, the entire, let's say, organizational structure associated with phoneword.org is not completely set up yet, and we are looking at some organizational structures that further establishes phoneword.org as being what I call Swiss neutral. So you know, if you've got questions about, well, what is this phoneword.org thing? You know, what's the ownership structure around it? What's the business model like? All that sort of thing. I ask you to just kind of keep an open mind at this point, because that is also one of the key areas that we're looking to create innovation within, is the governance, the organizational structure, the, you know, business model structure, the whole thing, that is all part and parcel with this new initiative to create something that really hasn't existed before. So, anything you would like to add to that, Brandon?
No, I think this is good.
Cool. Okay, so the next slide is next steps. The next steps and milestones. Basically, our next workshop, Registrar workshop, will be May 14th, 2014. That again will be 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 p.m. GMT. So that will be the second week of the month, May. And then the third week of the month, which will be the 21st of May, we will have the early morning workshop, which will be at 11 a.m. Eastern. So this has changed a little bit from what we were proposing before, but basically every second Wednesday of the month and every third Wednesday of the month, you can expect a phoneword.org workshop where we'll be continuing the conversation. We also, are working on the registry operation and prototyping the registrar API and prototyping that. And again, part and parcel with this whole thing is the technical and governance organization and also business model innovation as well. So we're going to be doing things, trying things. We might fail at, well, we definitely will fail at certain parts of this, and that's just part of the process. But the whole philosophy is we build something, we evaluate it, and then we iterate. Anything else you'd add to that, Brandon?
Nope. I think this is good.
Cool. So here's the contact information, which is also on phoneword.org, www.phoneword.org website. And the last is thanks. Thanks for participating. Thanks for watching this. And we welcome you to participate in the future. Again, we are building the email distribution list. And, although we announced this workshop on the social media more than I've probably ever announced a workshop or a get-together. And by the way, we will have the PhoneWord Forum, which will be a week from today on Wednesday, but it will be at 4 p.m. Eastern. And we'll also be talking about phoneword.org on the PhoneWord Forum. And that's open to a much, much broader audience than the phoneword.org workshops. But if you're interested in participating, we will have a sign up on the website soon. But you can just send an email to jcarpenter@phoneword.org, and we will put you on the email distribution list. But certainly, I am very sure that email is still one of the strongest ways to get people involved. So we fell down on that, or I fell down on that point for this workshop, but I can assure you that our next workshop we will have an email distribution list, and we will be reaching out personally to people to get involved. All right, pretty good timing. We're at 2:57 p.m. Arizona time, almost 6 p.m. East Coast time. Anything else you'd like to add, Brandon?
No, thanks everybody for joining us.
Absolutely. So thank you, and we look forward to you continuing to participate. All right. Have a good day.